Today's podcast is brought to you by AlleyRepair.com. Don't leave your skee ball machines lying around collecting dust in the basement. Let AlleyRepair.com bring those machines back to life. High quality workmanship for your skee ball playing needs. Contact AlleyRepair.com today. Hello everyone and welcome to this 13th episode of the Fro Life Wrestling Podcast. I want to apologize to our loyal fan base. We've been gathering more and more listeners, which I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I've been privileged enough to get some messages from some of our audience who let me know where they're sharing this podcast on social media. That means the world to us. I have to tell you, when I look at my YouTube channel, it tells me that I've got 1,200 people have been viewing our content. That's huge. I can't even tell you how appreciative I am of that. So if you are a true wrestling, football, education, whatever podcast of mine you're listening to fan, I really, really appreciate your loyalty and the time you spend listening to these. And I look forward to bringing you as much entertainment as I can going forward. That being said, I also want to apologize because this episode is actually coming out a little bit later than I would have liked it to. Unfortunately, I recorded this podcast and tried to get it to upload several times and something was wrong with the equipment. Hopefully everything's good to go and tonight's will get uploaded for you guys. We're going to talk today about a whole bunch of things, including the review of what happened on Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, talk about two other just offshoot tidbits from other promotions and situations, and a little bit of congratulations out there to somebody, and we'll wrap it up with that. I'm going to move relatively quickly because what I'm noticing is when I upload these podcasts, it looks like if I go longer than 30 minutes is when I seem to have a problem with the upload software. So we'll go for a 30-minute podcast or less, and if I sound really quick, I apologize. It's just me trying to keep up with what's going on in the wrestling world as fast as I can to bring it to you guys in an authentic a way as I can. So I'm going to start off tonight talking about CM Punk. I know he's not in wrestling anymore, but because he was, and he was so important, we're going to talk about him. And his claims that he's been negotiating with Dana White about what he's going to do next. He wants to fight. Dana White said it 100 times that he thinks that CM Punk is done in UFC, but at the end of the day, it looks like Punk is still training to get back into the octagon. I think that's a good thing. There have been plenty of people who have lost their debut fight, come back and had good careers. I'm not saying that Punk is ever going to be a top-tier talent for UFC, but what I'm saying is, I think at this point, the amount of effort he has put into it shows that he's committed to trying to be something for UFC, and if that's the case, I think they should make an opportunity available to him to give him at least one more shot to try to make an impact. He mentioned that he thinks that they're trying to wait until they have a show in Chicago. That sounds great from a marketing standpoint because you get a pop from the crowd when he comes out because it's his hometown crowd. But at the end of the day, you don't want to wait too long in between these things. He's not a spring chicken here. The guy is getting up there in age. You want to get him out there. If, God forbid, he actually has some success, you may want to capitalize on that with a third or fourth or fifth fight. So I hope Dana White gets his stuff together and gets a fight put together for Punk so we can see him in the octagon again. A little bit of post-Rumble conversation. The Undertaker apparently is very beat up after the Rumble. He had hip surgery, if anybody remembers, late last year, and now it sounds like he needs another surgery, which is a concern. And if you think about things, he was in the Rumble for under 9 minutes. It was like 8 minutes and 42 seconds or something like that. And he was miserable after the Rumble. He was very uncomfortable. There was reports of him being limping around behind the scenes. That's a concern because heading into WrestleMania, it looks like the plan now is to have him go against Roman Reigns, and if that happens, you can't have an 8-minute match with Roman Reigns and headline WrestleMania. That just doesn't make sense. So hopefully they can find a way to isolate this injury, do whatever they got to do to get him through WrestleMania. But I'm just being honest here. I don't think we're going to see The Undertaker make too many more of these WrestleMania appearances. And what's frustrating about that is with the popularity that Roman Reigns doesn't have right now, as much as people don't like him, the theory is that The Undertaker losing to him at Mania would give him the rub he needs to become a huge heel, and it would change his trajectory of his career. That sounds great, and I understand that long-term planning, but at the end of the day, there's been too many dream matches that have not happened under Vince's watch, and they're all Vince's fault. This is a publicly traded company, so I don't know why one guy gets to make all the decisions on final match lineups and the way they're going to handle pay-per-views. I understand he had a lot of success in the past, but he has missed a lot of opportunities, and when you find out that this past Monday Night Raw, the follow-up episode after the Royal Rumble, only drew like 3.5 million people, that's a problem, because only 5 years ago, it was like over 5 million people. WWE's losing viewers constantly because they don't give fans what they want, and they need to stop doing that. They pushed back on the Daniel Bryan thing a couple years ago, gave us Batista when we didn't want him. They haven't been behind Roman Reigns yet. It's time to start doing what the fans want. And honestly, the fans would like to see a John Cena Undertaker match. Now the whole conversation about the John Cena is he may not be in any kind of high profile match. He may be in a mixed match with Nikki Bella against The Miz and Maurice. And really, I couldn't care less to see that. It doesn't even make sense. If you're going to do Miz and Maurice against somebody, have Miz and Maurice go against Dean Ambrose and Renee Young. And just have Renee do limited ring work. But John Cena and Nikki Bella, there's no reason to do that. So I'm going to get off the post-Rumble recap. I'm going to throw out my congratulations to Linda McMahon, who was approved through the Senate to lead the Small Business Administration under the Trump presidency. I'm not saying I've said this before, I'm not a huge Trump guy, but at the end of the day, I am a wrestling fanatic. And Linda McMahon did a really good job as a CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment, CFO, whatever she was. But at the end of the day, I don't know how she's going to work with small business. Have never heard stories of her be able to create a small business and bring it up from the ground up like most small business owners do. The only businesses I've ever seen her and Vince enter into were buying into a huge corporation when Vince bought the business from his father, her going in with Vince and creating the XFL, which was a flop, and the WBF, which is the World Bodybuilding Federation they did back in like 92, I think it was 93. No, it was 92. When they had their Ico Pro thing, and that was a flop too. So hopefully she can lead the SBA in a good way, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's get back to the important stuff. Let's talk about some Raw matches and whatnot. So Raw opens up, and you're going to notice a theme here with the Raw stuff. I got a real problem with Raw this week. Raw has entirely too many spoken segments. The people complain about it being a 3-hour program. People might not complain as much if you were actually seeing wrestling, but most of the show is talking the entire 3 hours. Let me show you what I mean. First segment of the show, Owens and Jericho talking out in the ring. The talking segment to start the show, leading to Braun Strowman coming out and telling Kevin Owens that he owes him, like he was promised a championship match if he helped out at the Royal Rumble. I'm okay with that segment because it sets up a match for later in the evening, but at the end of the day, it's talking. So you have Foley come out. He makes the match official. It's going to be a world championship match. Owens and Braun Strowman. Cool match. One we haven't seen before. Thankfully, somebody in creative is trying to come up with something organic and new for us to see. They follow that up with Chris Jericho and Sami Zayn. For me, solid match. I'm a little frustrated. I understand that Sami Zayn is part of your future and Chris Jericho is leaving in May. So I understand you have to build Sami Zayn, but I don't want to see Sami Zayn built at the expense of the guy who in a lot of ways carried the brand for the last year. Chris Jericho, despite his age and his experience, has been one of the most thrilling things we've seen in the last year. So to put him in a match where he loses so easily and cleanly to Sami Zayn kind of frustrated me just a little bit, especially if you're going to build Jericho versus Owens at WrestleMania. Owens is the top guy. If he's the top guy and you want to believe that Jericho could potentially beat him, he can't be losing to Sami Zayn in a free match on Raw. Just saying. They jump to their next spoken segment. Cesaro, Sheamus, and Bayley back in the back dressing room area talking about their 6-person tag team match. Gallows, Anderson, and Charlotte coming in and interrupting them and making fun of them for being dorks or dweebs or whatever they were calling them. Worthless segment. Like, why are we wasting valuable television time watching these 6 people talk? The match was going to be bad enough to begin with. We really didn't need to see a talking part about it, unless you're going to build some kind of funky storyline with Cesaro and Bayley, because they seem to have some chemistry, and clearly Bayley and Sheamus did not. And the same thing goes for Charlotte and Gallows and Anderson. She's supposed to be like style and finesse like Ric Flair. Gallows and Anderson are brawlers. I don't know why you would pair those people up. That doesn't make sense to me at all. You go from that being the second spoken segment to an Owens-Stephanie McMahon segment where Owens is pleading with Stephanie to get rid of the championship match. Again, another spoken segment. It's now been 10 minutes and we haven't seen any wrestling. She tells him she'll handle his business after she gets done with Seth Rollins. So whatever, another worthless backstage segment. We go to the ring. We get Tony Nese and Mustafa Ali. I got a lot of frustrations with this match, and here's why. Both are talented. Tony Nese obviously is getting a push, and I'm okay with that. I actually really like him. Here's the problem. You've got 205 Live with a plethora of young cruiserweights. You could have brought any cruiserweight out to put him against Tony Nese to get beat down. Instead, they chose Mustafa Ali 1 week after building him up in a 6-man tag team match where it was like his coming out party. You don't build somebody up only to crush them the following week by the next guy you're going to push. This is the kind of nonsensical planning that WWE has done for years, and it's really becoming an issue. It creates a situation where it's hard to make Mustafa Ali believable in the cruiserweight division when he comes out one week and wins, and the next week and loses, and he comes out again and wins, and he'll come out and lose. You gotta establish the guy, and not as I heard a podcast that had conversation with Road Dogg, where he said something to the effect of wins and losses don't matter. Nonsense. They may not matter to the people in the back, and they may not matter to the production team or who's going to get a push. What they matter to is the fans. If you want us to buy into your product, push people correctly. After the match, Nice gets an interview with Austin Aries. Aries is giving him a whole lot of attitude, talking about him not having any charisma and making fun of his washboard abs being more exciting than he is. I actually have to tell you, I really like Austin Aries in the ring, but I also really like him on the mic. He's phenomenal in both segments, both situations. I'm hoping he makes it back to the ring. I know he suffered a serious eye injury last year, and there's a possibility we may not see him come back to the ring, but I'm hoping that's not the case because, man, he's style and finesse in the ring. He's got a unique move set, and seeing him in the ring would be a beautiful thing. But if that doesn't happen, the guy clearly has a future as a broadcaster because he is phenomenal already in the interviews and on commentary. We go to another spoken segment. Seth Rollins, Stephanie McMahon having their little spat over what happened at NXT TakeOver San Antonio and at him not being in the Royal Rumble and all this other nonsense, how he's going to get his hands on Triple H. She tries to convince him that Triple H isn't there and all this nonsense, and then she lets him in on the news that Triple H is on his way. We knew that. We didn't need Stephanie and Seth Rollins in the ring to tell us that. They could have accomplished the same thing by having the Stephanie-Seth Rollins conversation at the end of the show, had Triple H come out, and then done more. Instead, you separate it, you create a talking segment again, and then you postpone any action till later in the match, or later in the show. You get done that out of the ring segment, and then you go to Neville and Rich Swann with their own segment. Now granted, this one was in the ring and there was a few punches and kicks thrown, but no match. Again, it's speaking. Neville talking all about him being the king of the cruiserweights, Rich Swann coming out and threatening him or whatever. Another spoken segment. Bayley and Sasha Banks, another spoken segment. They're in the back. Oh, Sasha Banks is bandaging up her knee, and Bayley's telling her, you should wait until you're healed before you take on Nia Jax again. And, the Easter egg laid there by Sasha Banks saying, I'm not okay coming up short like some people, or however she phrased it, meaning that she's not going to be like Bayley, who seems to be okay with the fact that she didn't beat Charlotte for the women's title. I was okay. I actually thought that was pretty cool. I think earlier when we were talking about Cesaro and Sheamus and Bayley, I think we skipped over. When we went from Seth Rollins, we jumped ahead a little bit to the Neville Swan thing, and that's because of my notes here, but I forgot about the Cesaro, Sheamus, and Bayley match, because the match was actually all right. We've seen these same people out there every week for like a month now, so I'm seeing it on my sheet. I try to look past it because it drives me nuts, but if I'm going to say anything about that 6-person tag team match, I like how it ended with a clean pinfall for Bayley. Coming out of the Royal Rumble, she loses to Charlotte, and you think, how are they going to possibly build this girl up to be a legitimate contender when she loses to Charlotte in her first chance out, and you see Nia Jax just destroying people? This is a way you can do it. Clean pinfall victory after a Bayley to belly. Cool match. I skipped over the Foley Stephanie segment. See, man, I'm all over the place tonight because I'm trying to rush through this and get it done within the 30 minutes. Foley and Stephanie had a backstage segment right before Neville and Rich Swann, where she gave Mick Foley some attitude about setting up that main event. At the end of the day, isn't he the general manager? You got to make your storylines make sense. If Mick Foley's the general manager, he made the match. Shut up. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. So every time you put an episode out there where you come out and you complain about his decision making, either fire him and put a new figurehead on your television program, or just shut up and support him. I hate the play on the whole authority thing still. That's dead and over with. Leave it alone. If he's your general manager and if you're not going to be an everyday on-screen talent, leave it alone. Just let him make his matches and just move on. It was another spoken segment. We didn't need to take up more time, because at the end of the day, other matches could have really used the time. There is another Jericho-Owens segment in the back before the Owens championship match, where they're talking about how Owens needs Jericho out there with him tonight. Jericho responding with, hey, listen, it's 24 hours after the Rumble. You weren't out there for me when I was going against Sami Zayn and all this stuff. And Owens going back and forth with him about, no, I need you there. We need to do this. Jericho telling him, if worst case scenario, we'll both still be U.S. champion at the end of the night. And it really was a cool way to start the build towards the split between the two. At the end of the day, though, with all these spoken segments, I wish they would have waited and done it somewhere else, or done it in a different way, or gotten rid of some of the other spoken segments. That would have probably been the best plan. You go into the match, Kevin Owens and Braun Strowman. Very cool match. This is probably, for me, the highlight of WWE programming this week, because 1, heel on heel. 2, a pairing we've not seen before. 3, Kevin Owens looked awesome in the match, putting him up against this monster who's been built up for the last 2 months. He comes out and he puts on a really competitive match. One that if he would have won it clean, you wouldn't have been surprised about. Strowman looked good. He looked like Strowman, like he does every other week. I didn't like the interference by Roman Reigns coming out and he Superman punches Strowman 3 times, spears him out onto the floor. I think what the plan is to have Reigns and Strowman at Fastlane, which I guess is okay, so you can blow that off before you have Reigns go and fight The Undertaker and Strowman go do his own program. But at the end of the day, the match was going so well, it's almost frustrating that they brought Reigns out, because you could have had a real quality finish to a quality match for free on television instead of making us pay the $9.99 to see it at a pay-per-view. You could have gotten it out of the way this week. Just Owens and Strowman, clean victory, postpone them getting together for several months, and hopefully, you keep that fresh for the future. Instead, it was kind of rushed on Monday night. Reigns interfering made so there's no clear ending, and now people are like, well, who would have won? Who knows? We have our segment with Lesnar and Heyman. Now, I know I've complained about a lot of the segments, but I'm okay with this one. This is the one that gave us the news that we all were expecting, and we've been planning since Survivor Series. Lesnar challenging Goldberg to a third and final match at WrestleMania. The plan is that either Lesnar or Goldberg is going to be walking around carrying the World Championship by the time they get to Mania, and they are going to be the last match to go on. That's my prediction. One of them wins the world title from Kevin Owens and then defends against the other at Mania in the final match of the card. I thought the segment was solid. I liked Heyman's dialogue complaining about the butt statements all the time. I like that. That was kind of cool. I was impressed that Brock didn't show any affect when he's sitting there running down his own client in a way, but whatever. I liked how they pointed to the WrestleMania sign. It wasn't overly aggressive, but it was still a cool moment. Sasha Banks and Nia Jax, they're up next. It's like a glorified squash match. Sasha Banks gets totally destroyed by Nia Jax. Bayley, she puts her in her submission hold after the bell. Bayley comes out. She leaves the ring. Bayley's checking on Sasha. She helps Sasha to the back. It's whatever. It's not like you couldn't have seen that coming. Nia Jax has destroyed everybody in the roster when they're fully healthy. Sasha's got a bum knee, and somehow we're supposed to believe that Sasha can beat her. It's kind of ridiculous. I actually really, really loved the Rusev and Jinder Mahal versus Enzo and Cass match, only because Enzo and Cass go over clean at the end. And they started out when they got to Raw last year on fire, and then were somehow pushed down to the bottom of the card, and now this gave them a clean win and reestablishes them as a top team. I like that. We get all the way down to the last segment. Triple H coming out, calling out Seth Rollins, telling him he's his creator. Now he's going to meet his destructor and all this other kind of nonsense. Rollins is walking out, and then we see the debut of Samoa Joe. I'm a huge Joe fan, but I will tell you, at WrestleMania, I would have much more preferred to see Joe go against John Cena, not against Seth Rollins, who today, I guess there is a positive that the podcast got delayed a day, is that I could talk about the fact that it looks like Seth Rollins has a legitimate knee injury coming out of the Samoa Joe attack. I'm hoping that doesn't take him out of Mania, because we really need this Triple H thing to be over with. But if it does, that's the business. But Joe, great debut. Very physical, typical Samoa Joe. Yeah, I'm sorry, but looking at him in the ring on Monday night, he looked like Taz on steroids. Like, he just looked like a jacked up Taz, you know? And I guess he's been compared to Taz several times before, but this one's a lot much more believable because he's taller and thicker than Taz. Taz is like a midget. This guy is a monster. So, cool character moment. I'm going to move over to SmackDown. And like I said, I'm gonna go through these relatively quickly because we're already at 19 minutes. We see the announcement at the beginning by Shane McMahon that there's going to be an elimination chamber, seeing John Cena, AJ Styles, Baron Corbin, Dean Ambrose, Bray Wyatt, and The Miz. Cool match because you got some style, you got some competitions in there that have never been seen on television. Corbin hasn't wrestled half of these people. Wyatt hasn't done anything meaningful in quite a long time, with the exception of this little tag team championship run, which I still feel like was pointless. But at the end of the day, Miz and Wyatt, Miz and Corbin, Corbin and Wyatt, Corbin and Miz, Corbin and whoever. It's a good program to build Corbin for the future, and to, I guess, if you have to lay the seeds for the Cena-Miz thing, maybe it can happen there. I don't know. But at the end of the day, that'll be the main event at Elimination Chamber. We get to see Ambrose come in and talk about his unfinished business with Styles now that he's done with the whole James Ellsworth nonsense, and I'm so glad that that's over with. He and Styles are going to have a match later in the show. They have a bit where John Cena's in the ring talking about his championship, throwing out the challenge. If somebody wants some, come get some. He gets interrupted by the Wyatt family. And this time I'm talking about just Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. They come to the ring. They're throwing out all kinds of conversation about how one of the two of them in some fashion is going to free the championship. And the lights go out. When it comes back on with the Wyatt music, it's Luke Harper in the ring with shoulder to shoulder with John Cena, which was a very cool moment. I actually really like Luke Harper. For those who don't know, he had a very cool career before WWE. There's actually, if you go to YouTube, you can find videos of Luke Harper against Claudio Castagnoli, which is Cesaro, in like cage matches and everything all over the Northeast section of the country in independent wrestling. So I encourage you to go to YouTube and check that out. Shane makes it a tag team match official. We get to see Cena and Luke Harper get in the ring and really have a quality match with the Wyatt family, ending with a clean pinfall victory for Randy Orton over John Cena, which is going to set up next week's main event, because we're going to get to see John Cena and Randy Orton next week, which we've seen about 4 million times, but why not 4 million in one? There is a match with Carmella coming to the ring with James Ellsworth. We get this new female wrestler who's dressed all glittery, Delilah Dawson. She comes out. Carmella and James Ellsworth are making fun of her throughout the match. Ellsworth ends up interfering, causing her to get tripped up, and Carmella pulls off the win. We get another insanely unnecessary Dolph Ziggler and Kalisto match, where it ends the same as every other match, with Dolph Ziggler winning the match and Apollo Crews making the save. I wish they would hurry up and get this thing going. I'm suspecting that they're going to put this match at the Elimination Chamber, Ziggler and Crews. That way you free the two of them up for a ladder match at Mania. We get a women's match, Naomi and Becky Lynch against Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. Not real happy that for the second straight match since Mickie James has come back, she loses again. She comes back, aligns herself with the women's champion, and somehow keeps losing. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why'd you bring her back if you're just going to make her, the jobber? It's ridiculous. It seems to be a pattern with WWE when they bring somebody back like her, though, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The win comes when Naomi hits the springboard split leg moonsault. It's a cool situation, but I still think Mickie James should get a win here and there. I've been complaining for weeks that we're not seeing enough of American Alpha. They have a segment where they throw out their American Alpha Open Challenge. The Usos, the Ascension, Vaudevillains, Breezango, Heath Slater, and Rhino all come out for the challenge. Turns into a physical fisticuff melee, and there's no match. So your tag team champions that we've been dying to see for weeks now come out and there's no action. Nikki Bella and Natalya have another segment in the back where Daniel Bryan finally makes it a match at Elimination Chamber. Thank God. Let's get rid of this feud. It drives me nuts to begin with. Styles and Ambrose, match of the week. They get in the ring. They have their match. It's a classic Styles-Ambrose match, back and forth, all the high spots you would expect. Miz is out on commentary. At some point, Baron Corbin comes out on commentary. There's this dissension between Corbin and Miz. They get into a physical altercation. They create a distraction so that Dean Ambrose makes a dive over the ropes or through the ropes, and he ends up distracting himself so that Styles can hit the Styles Clash for the win. It's kind of cool. In the ring, Miz comes in, hits the skull-crushing finale on Ambrose. Corbin comes in, does End of Days to Ambrose and to Miz. Crazy ending to SmackDown, but good week. I'm going to jump to 205 Live because we're at 24 minutes and I need to wrap this up. Tony Nese over Lance Dorado. TJ Perkins coming in at the end of the match to keep a beatdown from happening. Nese again looking strong. Akira Tozawa, whoever that is, versus Aaron Solo. Austin Aries interviews Tozawa after the match again. Awesome interview by Austin Aries. Neville and Noam Dar with Alicia Fox against Cedric Alexander and Jack Gallagher. You know, this match happened because Rich Swann's knee is injured after the Royal Rumble. Neville ends up walking out on Noam Dar, and Cedric Alexander gets the win with his pop-up backstabber move, which I love. And that's pretty much all for 205 Live. I wanted to rush all this because I really want to say congratulations on a 10-year anniversary of Wrestling Society X. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, it was a wrestling promotion started by MTV back in 2007. It featured people like Seth Rollins, Joey Ryan, Matt Cross, who's in Lucha Underground as Son of Havoc, Matt Sydal, who was Evan Bourne, Colt Cabana was wrestling as Matt Classic, Jack Evans, Vampiro, X-Pac, Mil Muertes, just a ton of talent. They even had Teddy Hart, who was one of the Hart family members, who is insanely talented but is pretty much out of the business now because he can't keep himself out of legal trouble. But if you get a chance, go on YouTube, pull up the matches for Wrestling Society X, buy the 4-disc DVD, see all the episodes if you can. It's a promotion I wish would have stuck around, but they kept editing out all the important storytelling and putting on all the big moves of every match, and that's all you got to see, and it kind of got monotonous. And MTV didn't keep it around after the first season, so you can check it out at ProWrestlingTees.com. They have t-shirts, they have the videos for you to buy. It's very cool stuff. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us in episode 14. We'll cover whatever's going on in the world of wrestling in a couple days. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for giving us all the music and sound effects that we use throughout this show. Tonight's podcast is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a friend and new family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games and bring some fun and excitement back to family game night. Go to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. To AlleyRepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade needs. And to A&B Education of Lansdale, Pennsylvania, bringing intercultural education to talented students from around the world. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you in your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today, and we look forward to discussing more current events in the world of wrestling and all the rumors that are out there on our next show. So long, everybody. Have a great night.